You're listening to Mind Your Business, hosted by me, David Pawsey, and recorded in the Deep Social podcast studio in Crawley Innovation Centre. Join me as I talk to a variety of business leaders, innovators and artists from Crawley and beyond to find out what makes them tick. Thanks for listening, and please check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other major podcast channels. Welcome to this week's episode of Mind Your Business, and I'm delighted to be joined by Demelza Staples. Demelza is somebody that's been a friend of mine for quite a long time. We've recently have done some work together, but she works for Metro Guard. Under that, there are several other brands. She also works for Double Check Security, which is a sister company, but operates on a slightly different side of security. But it was an incredible discussion. You know, we talked about what it means to be a woman in security. Demelza is part of an industry body called Women in Security, so I was quite fascinated to learn about that.
When I first started in loss prevention security, I was absolutely, the minority. I'd go to big security events and there would be very few of us there. I'd spot the other 3 or 4 women that were in similar roles to me and we'd kind of huddle together.
She also talks about, what it's like working in the industry when there is an increased terror level threat.
It's important for businesses to work with those partners who are able to support them properly in providing safe venues with correctly vetted staff.
And what that means for people like you and me. She also talks about her love of rugby, horse riding, and a lot of other things, but it was a great chat. Enjoy. Welcome to Mind Your Business, Demelza. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So what is your business, Demelza, and how did you get into it?
So I work in the security industry. I'm Group Process and Transformation Director for the Metro Guard Group and the Double Check Security Group, and recently Managing Director of Contract Cleaning Facilities Limited.
I don't know a great deal about the security industry. I'm starting to learn a lot more. I know that traditionally a lot of people come from sort of emergency services or the armed forces, and I do know that that isn't in your background. So how did you get into the security industry?
Yeah, you're quite right. Mostly when I joined the industry, it was certainly a lot of ex-police officers, ex-military. I started my career in human resources and was receiving the investigation packs from the guys in loss prevention who were out, and they were bringing these exciting cases. I was working for Carphone Warehouse. They'd been out catching internal theft and fraud. And I thought, that looks really interesting, and I wanted to go and do it. I went knocking on the door of the loss prevention team and said, "Hi, can I have a job?" And the response I got from one of my now mentors was, "Oh, you're from the pink and fluffy department. You're not ex-police, you're not ex-military. No, thank you." And that was red rag to a bull. So I was like, absolutely not having that. So I thought, right, I'm going to go off, do a loss prevention course. Came back and said, "I've done a course. Will you take me now?" Rather naively. And he said, "You're not going to let this go, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He went, "Right, I'll give you an interview." And so I got probably the hardest interview of my career to date from Phil, and he gave me a job in loss prevention. So that took me on that path within security, so internal investigations, which is brilliant fun. You learn a lot, data analysis to catch the thieves. And that's how I started in the mobile phone industry, and then on into other branches of retail within security.
Already, I've got lots of questions from several things you said there. So you sort of mentioned about like internal investigations. I mean, obviously, it's a very broad comment, but is a lot of loss that companies experience, is it from their employees generally?
Yeah, I mean, every business is different, but I think when you're talking about retail, which is where I sort of cut my teeth in loss prevention and security, I think the stats around the time I started was 2% of employees will steal. So your job in loss prevention is to create systems or processes that make that less likely to happen, whether that's till control or safe controls or process and procedure. But yeah, you'll find people will dip in the till. They'll find really creative ways. I mean, some of the ways that people found to either take stock or cash is unbelievable. You know, I could tell you so many stories of the methods that people used, and if they'd applied their skill in actually, you know, working hard in the business, I mean, some of the minds, you know, were amazing.
That actually brings me on to another interesting point. I mean, obviously, we've talked about how traditionally a lot of people come from the armed forces and the blue light services. You've obviously sort of said about, you know, the criminal mind. I mean, how often do people kind of get recruited from the wrong side of the tracks, shall we say? But I mean, you hear a lot about cybersecurity in particular, where ex-hackers get employed to help big companies bolster their IT infrastructure. I mean, is that sort of something that happens?
I think in retail, there will always be some people that will do the circuit. So certainly when the loss prevention managers would get together from other mobile phones, you know, companies or retailers, there'd be some common names. There would be people that would do the rounds and practice their, you know, their trade of theft or fraud. But largely, I think it's about opportunity. The stock item is there. There's no process or security around it, or the cash is available, or there's no checks and balances. And it's opportunist, I think, more than targeted in a retail environment.
And I mean, is it often the psychology of, I can get away with this? Or, I mean, obviously the last few years we've had a, you know, cost of living crisis, people's money isn't going as far. And, you know, there has been a lot in the news about increase in sort of shoplifting. I mean, is it generally people react to the circumstances and that they're pressured into it? Or is it often where people are literal kleptomaniacs and can't help themselves?
I think it's a mixture, but Professor Martin Gill, who's one of my favourite public speakers, he talks about, he's a criminologist, and he said he conducted a number of interviews with armed robbers and burglars in prison, and said to them, on the day that you committed your crime, what did you think the percentage chance was that you were going to get away with it? You know, or rather, did you think you were going to get caught? And they said, no, I didn't think I was going to get caught at all. They entered into it believing they were going to get away with it. So, you know, that's quite an insight into the mindset of someone who's setting out to commit that crime, as opposed, you know, and planning, as opposed to someone who's just opportunistic and takes something that's sitting in front of them.
So are we seeing more companies in retail that wouldn't have had security guards, say 5-10 years ago, that are now sort of employing them? Yeah. I mean, how's the environment changed?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, as you're aware, Double Check, we've got, you know, high-end luxury retail brands, and we provide security guards into those sites as a visual presence and that deterrent to remove that opportunistic, you know, piece. So yeah, it's certainly we're seeing more and more. Shoplifting is on the rise, and unfortunately, with policing as it is, they can't attend in the way they might have done 10 or 20 years ago when I first started. So it is reliant on the private security sector to help retailers with their security. We're
recording this in May, and I've sort of heard on talk radio there was a case of, I think, a security guard like grabbing someone in the store, and he got fired. I mean, you were aware of this case?
Yeah, I did read about it. It's I don't know what the answer is, honestly, because our guys are trying to strike the balance of, you know, protecting the stock, protecting the staff, but I don't believe they should be losing their jobs over it. And that's rare. You know, it's rare. Our teams are stopping incidents all the time. And normally a retailer would absolutely be backing, you know, our team members in those cases.
So with Double Check, obviously you've talked about sort of high-end brands. I mean, well, what brands do you work with?
We work with Dolce & Gabbana, Ralph Lauren, Schiaparelli, Diptyque, the Ned Hotel. Hoxton. We've got some really wonderful customers who we work with.
And I mean, is it almost a case of they feel that there is an operational need? Is it legislation, or is it just the environment that a presence is required?
Yeah, it's operational need. It's in the nighttime economy. Licensing conditions will often stipulate that you need door supervision. But certainly in retail, it's an operational requirement from the retailer to have us there. And our job is to sort of blend in, particularly with luxury retail. We're there to be part of the on-site team, but be that backup support if it's needed.
And I mean, what is the reaction of the customers? Is it a case of they like the presence there and they feel secure, or I mean, I guess they're so used to it now, but what is the customer reaction to it?
I think our teams, particularly in the luxury retail space, are there to welcome the customers. You see them more as a concierge service as a customer. They're certainly, not trying to prevent entry or anything like that. They're there to welcome you and make you feel safe whilst you're shopping. And of course, with the brands that we deal with, there are celebrity customers and high net worth customers. They just want to go about their business and feel safe, do their shopping and leave. And our guys are there to support them in that.
Sorry to interrupt, but I thought now would be a good time to tell you about the podcast and content creation services we offer at Deep Social. Not only can we record and edit your business podcast, which is a fantastic way of sharing your expertise and building deep bonds with your target audience, but we can transform each episode into blog content, white papers, LinkedIn posts, video shorts, a whole selection of marketing content that drives more leads to your business. So drop me an email at david@deepsocial.co.uk to discuss how we can elevate your content marketing success. Now I'll let you get back to the episode. You've sort of mentioned like a hotel there and obviously sort of high-end retailers. And you've mentioned that if it's someone famous or someone with a high profile or wealthy person, they are going to have their own personal security. I mean, how does that sort of work in environments? So, for example, if, it's Tom Cruise is coming to the hotel, he is going to have his entourage. How do they sort of liaise with the hotel security? I mean, how does that work?
Well, typically in those kinds of scenarios, there's normally briefings ahead of time. Our guys are given a briefing by the head of security at venues if there's some special event or something happening. But our teams do blend. That's the idea. We're there to be a support in whatever capacity our customers need us to be.
You've obviously mentioned about a lot of people come from the armed forces or the police or fire service. But what sort of training do they get, or what qualifications do they need to sort of operate in the security industry?
People joining us from blue light services and armed forces have loads of transferable skills, and we're very pleased that they join us in the industry. They do need to complete their SIA training courses and obtain their SIA licence, but then they are part of our team after that.
So what exactly is an SIA licence, and what does it involve getting that accreditation?
The SIA licence is from the Security Industry Authority, and that is the government body that oversees the industry. Once you've obtained your licence, companies like us will then recruit. We vet all of our team to high standards. It's called BS 7858 standards. That involves us doing a full 5-year background check on all the team. And then they're able to work for us.
I mean, obviously you've mentioned about the fact that when you first sort of knocked on that door and said, I want to be involved in this, and it was like, oh, you're from the pink fluffy department. Is it sort of a more male-dominated industry? How many females are there? Is it changing?
I mean, when I first started in loss prevention security, I was absolutely, the minority. I'd go to big security events and there would be very few of us there. I'd spot the other 3 or 4 women that were in similar roles to me and we'd kind of huddle together. The face of it has changed. Certainly now going to events. We are certainly coming up through. We've got the Women in Security Network, which we have hundreds and hundreds of us in that group now. But on frontline, whilst it is a really diverse mix of people holding frontline security licenses, there's still a lot of work to do. It's only about 11% are women, which means, for every 8 men, there's 1 female, roughly speaking. So there's still some work to do to get some, diversity there.
So what is the industry doing to try and encourage more women into the sector?
Security companies themselves, like us, are obviously keen to bring women through. And for me, it's about showing women the path that they can have. The Women in Security Network demonstrates that there is a secure, a path in security for women to take. If we're seen, if they can see it, they can do it. So the visibility of us, going out, doing public speaking, doing podcasts, hopefully to encourage, more women through. There's some fantastic initiatives as well. Lots of companies will sponsor women through their training as well.
So, you're quite involved in women in security, being a woman and working in security. But can you tell me a bit more about sort of what women in security have done in terms of raising the profile of women, as well as encouraging people in the industry, but obviously kind of showing that there is a career path?
Yeah, the Women in Security Awards has been running for some years. And to start with, I didn't really engage. And for the reason that I felt that I got my job through being tenacious and being as good as my male counterparts. So I didn't really want anything that was a gimme. And so I didn't really engage with it. And then as time went by, I started to understand that really it wasn't what I first thought. It really was about helping women, through with support and encouragement, about mentorship. So I started to engage more with the Women in Security events, and the network has grown. So we hold lots of events throughout the year, encourage, women to come forward and tell their story about their journey in security. We have an event coming up in July, sponsored by Tesco, where I'm part of a panel there talking about mentorship, which is something I'm really passionate about.
And you've sort of mentioned about your mentor. How important has a mentor been in helping you progress in your career?
Hugely important. I've been very, very lucky. So my first boss in security was ex-army and ex-police coming into loss prevention. He's helped me, have the confidence to do what I do today. He's been with me every step of the way. And I picked up a female mentor as well, who I admired hugely within the security industry, who worked her way up through some huge organisations. I think particularly for women, it's not an ability I notice. It's not they don't have the skill or the knowledge. It's a confidence issue. And I think having a mentor, someone who's being your cheerleader, as it were, and reminding you that you can do it is really, really important. That's
obviously something that you're now sort of trying to pay forward. So are you doing mentoring? Obviously you're talking about it, but do you have people that you mentor?
Yeah, I have people that I mentor. We also just regularly meet up with each other as a group. So when there's big security events on, we'll make sure we meet and collaborate on projects if we can. But we are launching at the Women in Security Network event a more formal mentoring platform, and that's what we'll be talking about in July with the network.
We've seen on the screen, we've got Double Check Security and Metro Guard Group with several groups under that, or several brands under that. Can you talk a bit more about Double Check Security and Metro Guard Group? Because I know that you're involved with both, but they are two very separate.
Yeah, two separate businesses. So Metro Guard Group operates here in the UK, also in the US and also Ireland. And that is predominantly your nighttime economy. So that's door supervisors, largely in the hospitality industry, so nightclubs, bars, hotels. We're very strong in competitive socialising environment, which is a really popular way for people to spend their time now in the evenings.
So that's things like flight club, like darts.
Absolutely that, yeah. So people are, it's the gamification, I guess, of your night out. So we do a lot of that with Metro Guard. Up in our Liverpool business at Gated Metro, we do lots of work within construction sector. And then with Double Check, it's predominantly security guarding within the retail space, luxury retail space, and also within logistics. So we look after some really large logistics partners, protecting ports and warehouses and businesses like that. And within the Double Check group, we've just recently acquired contract cleaning and facilities, which provides commercial cleaning and facilities management services as well, which is a really nice sort of complement to the wider security business.
You've sort of talked about the nighttime economy. Well, I want to talk about Martin's Law. I mean, that's off the back of the horrific bombing at the Manchester Arena. What exactly is Martin's Law?
Martin's Law came about, as you rightly say, off the back of the Manchester bombings, and it was evident that there needed to be change to ensure that things like that never happened again. Figan Murray is Martin's mother, and she has campaigned tirelessly to bring Martin's Law about, and it got royal assent, which is fantastic. It's still early stages because in some respects we're still waiting to know how this is going to manifest itself for the security industry, but rest assured this is going to be a really important step in ensuring that venues and security providers are working together to keep everybody safe in those larger, environments.
So, I mean, does it mean that there will be extra sort of regulations for businesses that perhaps don't need it at the moment, sort of semi-large nightclubs? Will it affect a lot of businesses in the nighttime economy?
It will affect a lot of businesses, but there are businesses that are still operating correctly, as it were, or are operating correctly. So for them, it won't really be much of a change. They're already ensuring all those steps are in place. They have, crowd safety experts already. I think the change will come about for perhaps those venues or security providers who aren't doing those things currently, and that will be the biggest change. They will have to come up and match the levels, that professional and professional businesses are.
So, I mean, will that mean that a lot of venues will need to engage companies like Metro Guard to sort of work through the new requirements? Absolutely.
And I think it's important for businesses to work with those partners who are able to support them properly in providing safe venues with correctly vetted staff, in the right ratios, doing all the pre-work, doing the risk assessments and understanding, what could go wrong.
I mean, on the subject of Martin's Law, sort of fairly recently, it was, across the news that the terror level had been raised as a result of what's going on in the Middle East at the moment. I mean, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that people should be more concerned if they're out at a nightclub? Or, what exactly does it mean when the terror level gets raised for security firms?
I think when you're in the security industry, you're always on alert. So I think whilst we communicate any changes to the threat level down to our teams, the moment it happens, we get broadcast out to all of our staff. They'll receive that on their mobile phones straight away. The fact is they remain vigilant. They're all trained in counter-terrorism awareness. So I think it doesn't really change much. But members of the public, it might put them on higher alert in terms of thinking perhaps where they might not have reported, a package or a suspect, item. It might make them think a bit differently. But rest assured, the security teams are always looking out. That's their job.
So as well as Martin's Law, another sort of big campaign that you've personally and as a business have been involved with is Ask for Angela. I mean, that's on a sort of slightly different sort of vein. That's sort of more about sexual harassment and safeguarding for women.
Yeah.
So can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Ask for Angela has been going for 10 years. And I recently was asked to apply to be a trustee, and I was interviewed and was successful. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm really, really pleased, because I have seen Hayley speak about Ask for Angela on the hospitality circuit, for a decade, and thought, what a fantastic initiative. And for me, I guess on a personal level, Ask for Angela wasn't around when I was going out in my 20s, quite frankly. And it's really important as a mum that it's there for the next, 10 years, plus, for my daughter and my son, when they go out.
You've raised an interesting point there about sort of your children are getting to an age where they're going to start going out. I mean, does that kind of change your approach to the job? I mean, are there sort of certain aspects where you think, oh goodness, that could have been my son or my daughter in that incident, or is it not quite?
It's not hit home yet. 13 and 10, but I think something like Ask for Angela should be in every venue across the UK. It's focused mainly in licensed premises. But it should really be in your coffee shops, in your retailers. People should be able to approach a member of staff in those environments and ask for Angela and be taken to a safe space and be given the support. And it's really easy to implement as well. All of the toolkits that anyone would ever need to implement Ask for Angela are available, on our website. They can download the checklist, the staff training, the video to show staff. It's really straightforward. And if anyone is even contemplating doing it, please do. It's so straightforward. Just go to the website, download the toolkit, register your venue on the website as well, report any incidents so we can understand what's happening in venues.
Another sort of hot topic in the security industry is mental health. I mean, obviously, you've sort of talked about a lot of people come from the armed forces and, the blue light services. When you've got an industry where, PTSD is so prevalent, what are the other issues in regards to mental health that are evident in the security service?
I think the nature of the work is such that you are confronted with incidents more often than your, average person. And certainly people who are coming into the security industry who've come from armed forces or blue light services have in their history been exposed to a lot more, and so potentially more likely to have seen things that could trigger PTS or PTSD. You or I in our daily life or through our lifetime will be exposed to 6, 7, 8 incidents that could bring on PTS or PTSD. A police officer in a 30-year career is more likely to see between 600 and 800 incidents that could bring on PTS or PTSD. And they're expected just to get up and go to the next job. And similarly, in security, things do go wrong. People will get injured, where there's alcohol involved, and our teams will have to deal with that incident, make everyone safe.
Before the blue lights arrive.
Before the blue lights arrive, and then carry on and reset everything and keep everyone safe again and just keep going throughout their shift. Security by its nature, typically long shifts, overnight shifts. So it's a tough industry to work in, and it's underestimated.
And I think obviously there'll also be examples where, we've talked about the cost of living crisis, but people want to pick up as many shifts as they can. And, they'll literally go from one job straight to the other. And as you say, there can be a loan. I mean, it does sound like there's a lot that can take its toll. Yeah,
there's lone working in security in some circumstances. Clients only want, a single guard in a premises overnight, for example, so it can be quite isolating. Regarding sort of picking up the hours, we're very careful. We have an excellent scheduling system called C247, and we program that system to ensure that nobody is overworked. So you won't have the situation where someone's going back to back into shifts without a rest. We monitor that really closely from a compliance perspective. But less scrupulous businesses may have people doing, those back-to-back shifts without the break. And unfortunately, there are people, because of cost of living crisis, who will take those shifts when offered and won't turn them down and take the rest that they perhaps need.
And I think, not only does that affect their mental health, but obviously it means that, they can't perhaps react as well to situations that happen, which might be one night out of 7.
Yeah.
But, and that's obviously something that can have a very detrimental impact on the business overall.
Absolutely. You need to be rested. You need to be alert. We've talked about, counter-terrorism awareness. You've got to be sharp when you're on shift. You've got to be on the lookout. You don't know what's coming around the corner or what's going to happen next.
And, so PTSD 999, how did you sort of get involved with them?
We met Gary. We are signatories of the Armed Forces Covenant, and in talking to Gary, who's the founder of PTSD 999, just realised it was a really good partnership, particularly for double check security. So we took them on as our charity partner. We have Armed Forces personnel working for us, and we actually sponsor the licences for anyone who's left the Armed Forces and wants to come and work in security. We'll actually sponsor their training and their licences. So it just felt like a really good partnership to work with Gary and raise awareness for what he does.
And are there any other sort of partnerships or charities that you work with?
Yeah, on Metro Guard, we support Ask for Angela, and I'm a trustee for them as well as PTSD 999. We are very passionate about ensuring that our security teams know what Ask for Angela is. Anyone that comes for an interview with the Metro Guard group will be asked if they know what Ask for Angela is. If they don't, then they'll go away from that interview. Even if they don't have a job, they will go away knowing what Ask for Angela is. So if they end up working somewhere else, they're able to support somebody. We also volunteer with a charity called Stamp Out Spiking and support them when they're doing their road shows and raising awareness around spiking. So very much around safeguarding, are our chosen partners.
Excellent. We've got the summer coming up. World Cup, and I think sort of traditionally you see more footfall sort of through shopping areas, etc. So what is on the horizon for both Metro Guard in the UK and further afield, and Double Check over the next few months?
So out in New York, we're actually supporting a client out there in a very large venue. I think it's the largest venue outside the stadium itself in providing security guards out there. So that's really exciting.
For a fan zone.
For a fan zone, absolutely. And our hospitality clients in particular will start their planning now in terms of their, proposed headcounts. We will see, an influx of requests for higher numbers because they'll be expecting higher footfalls, particularly in those venues where they're showing the sports.
So you've obviously told me a lot about your working role. So what do you do to relax?
So I've just recently joined the local ladies cricket team,
right?
Which has been great fun. I didn't think I'd be any good, but it turns out I'm all right. So that's good. Horse riding, and I love my rugby, so I support our local team, which is East Grinstead. Watch my little boy play there. Harlequins, and of course England, Red Roses, and the men's team, of course. So
has rugby always sort of been a passion?
Yeah, I mean, always. It's such a great day out, and we all sit together. It doesn't matter who you support, you sit together and cheer on each other's and clap each other's teams, and it's just a really, really exciting time. And I get to meet people like Danny Kerr, of course.
Excellent. With the horse riding, that's very different to sort of the scenario you just described. I mean, do you tend to do, is that more of a solitary activity where you're like, right, I'll get out for a long hack and clear my
exactly
head?
that. I think when you're, you know, in a busy role, you need that sort of time out. You know, team sports are obviously great, but horse riding, just going for a canter or a gallop through the fields, blow the cobwebs away, bit of a reset at the end of the week is really good for mental health.
Excellent. So if people want to find out more about you or about Double Check, Metro Guard and the various brands underneath those organisations, where's the best place to find out?
Well, obviously I'm on LinkedIn. There is only one Demelza Staples on LinkedIn, so
right.
You can find me there.
Okay, and I'll put links into the show notes and everything, but thanks very much for joining me, Demelza.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure we'll catch up soon.